A big hello and a warm welcome to our lovely audience joining us from various different time zones across different geographies here today. Namaskar, salam alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. Today, we have a very special guest on our show, Ms. Sonia Lang. Sonia, an MBA in Business Economics from Goethe University, Frankfurt, Germany, is a certified leadership coach in group performance, accredited by Michael Grinder Academy of the USA. She is a certified coach, NLP trainer, and NLP master practitioner, accredited by the Association of Integrative Psychology, AIP, United Kingdom. She is a public speaker, inspiring people across United Kingdom, Germany, Egypt. She is also a certified Isha Hatha yoga teacher with training of about 1,750 hours from the Isha Institute of Inner Sciences, India. She is also certified in yoga psychology. Sonia, that's a long profile, had a long 20-year-long successful career in investment banking until 2013. She traded foreign exchange options, interbank, was in charge of product sales for 5 countries. Originally from Germany, she has lived in Singapore for a few years. She has lived for 15 years in London, 3 years in Cairo, and time and again in Indian ashrams for monk like trainings. During her career, she more and more felt a missing link to substantially empower and influence an organization so that continuous and ever growing success becomes a fact in a volatile and uncertain business world, which undoubtedly was and is the playground of financial markets for centuries. Without thinking too much of what is possible and not possible, she left her comfortable corporate job and deeply analyzed what made her so successful. She realized that she was along the way introduced to powerful strategies and tools which deepened her studies and experiences. Now she bridges her corporate experience with the sciences of the mind, the Western science of psychology, neuroscience, and anthropology, and Eastern sciences of meditation, pranayam, and hatha. Sonia is a founding principal of her venture, Mindful Clarity, a coaching and training organization set up in 2014. And since 2014, Mindful Clarity inspires people like us across industries and continents to connect with this technology and how to implement and use it in our own lives and businesses. In 2020, inspired by the transformation into the digital age, she thought about the implications for the world and for the leaders. She synthesized this into new prototypical models, the internal external leadership model and the internal external worldview model. Both of these models are just about to be presented in a reputable academic publication with a Swiss Army knife style pragmatic application for you to implement in your lives. We will learn about these models from Sonia herself in our conversation with her today. I'm sorry I've been speaking so much, but her profile is so rich and she's such an accomplished person that I couldn't avoid that. So, and we at TLR now have had a wider association with Sonia, and she has been a guest not only at an earlier episode of TLR shows, but also has been a part of our Earth Connect series. A very warm welcome to you, Sonia. Thank you for being here on the show today.
Thank you, Nalin, and thank you very much for this a kind introduction, but most importantly, for this long-standing exchange which we are having on various subjects and on various points throughout time as well. So it's wonderful for you to have me again.
Thank you so much for coming. Sonia, last time you were here at TLR shows, we were in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. People across geographies were working remotely, and we had a great conversation on the subject of leadership in the digital world. You had spoken in great detail about leading digitally in the VUCA world for the benefit of our audience. Can you describe the digital world and why you always spoke about the VUCA, the volatile, uncertain, complex, or chaotic in your words, and the ambiguous world? And what role has COVID-19 played in making it even more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous?
Our last conversation was really multifaceted, and we were in the midst of the pandemic. A lot what
Yeah.
we spoke about then became the changes and the realities we experienced now indeed. I'm looking forward to deepen that exchange again and to look into what hopefully will be a better future with even more possibilities as well. This is a good start to kind of frame or lay a foundation for our exchange today. So be patient with me to define our world and the terms for you. VUCA is how we now perceive the digital era: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Would you describe your world to be like that?
Absolutely.
For most people, this term is new. When I first heard the term, I thought, well, this is my normal day. I was in financial markets, and every day the market could go crazy, things could change so quickly. The interdependencies between news, the markets, and all these factors. Even the weather or sporting event, if needed, would change something. While in the industrial age, we had machine production and processes, all nicely orderly and predictable and easy to make plans.
Right.
Yeah, wasn't that comfortable? Those days are gone. In the digital age, with so many new developments, change is the only constant. So now COVID-19 in itself is VUCA. Volatile, yep, check. Everything changed quickly and a lot. Uncertain, yep, check. We never had this ever. Complex, check. How to untangle setups which have been developed over years and years. Ambiguous, yep, check. Even these new facts, they had no meaning as we had no context to put them into. Now, on digitalization, how do people see it and how do they interpret it? Digitalization has computers and AI, the artificial intelligence. In the industrial age, we made success and careers out of knowing more and being faster. That's no more. Computers and robots win that every time already. However, digitalization can free humans to focus on their USP, the unique selling proposition, being actually human.
Absolutely.
Only humans can create and have a human-to-human interaction, a natural connection, an exchange that also allows a connection between humans and humans, like a natural ecosystem. The last 1.5 years brought almost the two together. COVID and digitalization almost fed off one another. But also think, how would we have managed the COVID-19 without digitalization? When people could not go to work, people had to stay at home. Without digitalization, people would not have been able to continue work. And despite an economic slump, a lot still got done. And almost even more important, digitalization connected people with each other to uphold at least some kind of a minimum of normality for both businesses and personal life. I think this kind of sums up what we talked about the last time and what we experienced in between the two talks we had.
So Sonja, as an executive coach, you have been working with people in various leadership roles across geographies. What do you consider are the personality traits that make a good leader?
This is a very good question, Nalin. I have lived and worked for 15 years in London, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and India. While there are cultural differences, it is the personality types, the mindsets, and the actions which all leaders have in common. So for me, it is people who have actually a vision, people who follow where there is a will, there is a way, creativity and endurance. That is the real trademark. These traits are also what is really important to evolve them, in particular in the digital era. The World Economic Forum already defined in their 2018 employment report that by 2022, so next year, at least supposedly, the top 10 skills will be 100% different than they were in 2018. Now we need skills like creativity, originality, initiative, innovation, critical thinking and really important complex problem solving skills.
Yeah.
And these are all needed in the digital age. And obviously then COVID-19 happened and everything did almost like a time warp into the future. All those traits were needed to be managed to really deal with the challenges of COVID-19 already, right?
We were talking about the skills that have kind of changed. In fact, very good you brought about the topic on the World Economic Forum skills outlook. I was actually going through that, and I saw that the the evolution of skills that World Economic Forum is looking at, it is more now on analytical thinking, innovation, you mentioned, creativity, social influence, emotional intelligence, problem solving, etc., and less of memory, simple quality control, manual dexterity, and simply management of personnel. So I think it's a transformational change that the World Economic Forum is looking at, and part of it is being driven by the situation that has come our way due to COVID-19. So, what do you think where organizations are heading to as they look forward to hiring people, as they look forward to kind of promoting people and changing the way organizations have been working?
I think organizations, as much as leaders, go through change on how they are structured. And again, a part of it was in the industrial age, we were producing a certain something, and this is what we were good at, and this is what we were renowned for. Through digitalization and in particular, through COVID, a lot of companies needed to maybe not reinvent, but reposition themselves as well. In my personal view, organizations will in the future only give a general idea, like something which they stand for, and then if and when markets, the world, their ideas evolve, will apply that general idea to it. A good example is, for example, Amazon. So if we look back at the days when it was founded, it was basically a bookshop. That's very limited. And if you think, okay, you sell books, you may have back in the days sold something like DVDs, or you might have been able to sell some candies to eat while you're reading the book. But that was basically it, right? Bezos' general idea was to build a business to serve the client. Everything which was done to make life easier for the customer. And if you see this as the core, then all of a sudden you can sell anything, books, clothes, TVs, I don't know what they all sell these days. An organization needs not to stand for a certain something, but an organization needs to focus on its why. And following Simon Sinek's great book where he starts with where the book is actually called Start With Why. Exactly. So once you focus on a higher scale, on a vision, on something, then whatever you slot underneath it will always fit the higher purpose and good. But for that, it is important that you need someone who's able to actually chunk up, think in that sphere as well, and not getting lost into how do I position myself today? Because tomorrow, in particular, the last 1.5 years have shown that tomorrow will not basically be able to do whatever we have done today.
Right.
So the big vision and the big idea which it needs to stand for the people, but also for the organizations as well. And we've seen already some of the companies who were in the digital area as well, they already actually have that attitude as well.
So in your new leadership model that you're presenting in your book, first of all, congratulations for the book Leadership After COVID-19, which is out at Springer Publishing House. You've written that traditional leadership models have been focused on managing others. I think it would be great for our audience to understand, isn't that what managing and leadership entails? And how do you see leadership vis-a-vis management, as many organizations and us as individuals tend to use these terms interchangeably?
Well, indeed, it's a great privilege to publish amongst renowned academics and thought leaders my internal external leadership model in the Leadership After COVID-19 book. Indeed, I created it as I saw one simple thing missing in every model. Each model takes almost for granted that the leader actually knows what she or he wants and why. But let's stay with the focus on what did the traditional leadership models actually do. And in the traditional leadership models, it was always at the center to make people follow a certain process to a fixed goal in a certain period of time. And always the leader knew it all and was already defining every step on the way. This is a process which is really, really good for the people who actually do know it all. And that is great. But again, we talked about the VUCA world where everything is changing so quickly. So that is not true. Still, those models were for the life of leaders of the industrial age. Things were foreseeable, to everything could be controlled with a precise order. And so the leaders were often, not exclusively, obviously, more like managers, where you say the words are being used interchangeable is because once upon a time it actually was. So back in the days, maintaining the process, making small adjustments, and hence create improvement, just step by step.
Right.
That was possible. But obviously, does that fit today's world? It doesn't. So because the world is VUCA, we also need new models which actually reflect that and help the people to really work within this new environment. And this is where my internal external leadership model comes in.
Right. So it's more about self-assessment and reacting to the environment.
It first of all starts with understanding that it's self-assessment in order to understand the situation, to gain clarity, and then to do a self-leadership as well. So how often have you said, done, or decided something just to later regret it? Well, I know I did. I don't seem to be able to get myself to do what I want. Why is that? And how do I think I could have others follow my vision if I myself don't?
Right.
Well, because if we think there is a lot going on the outside world, there is much more going on the internal world. Leaders with internal clarity and that's important, a positive intent, combined with their ability to connect externally and to communicate with others, can achieve their vision.
Right.
We need to learn and to really understand the importance of one's own internal filters and algorithms, bringing unconscious biases to the conscious mind for a true and active decision making. And authentic breakthroughs always come from within. So if you think about the conscious mind, and I'm very proud, and it was always very important to me how analytical I was. Obviously, financial markets, it's all about numbers and understanding things. All well and good. But understanding that the conscious mind is almost just like a tiny little keyhole through which we can see an entire house behind it, which is the unconscious mind.
Right.
So if I understand that the unconscious mind is a huge, but it's most importantly, it's not perfect. It
Right.
has its flaws, but it is looking to help us, and it is helping us to navigate through life and the best it can. A sort of more practical example out of my previous life, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
is
Right.
we had the option formula in financial markets. The option
Mm-hmm.
formula has 7 basic assumptions. All of them are wrong. And so now what to do with a system which is based on wrong assumptions? Should we throw it out? Well, that's an option, but what to do then? So what we did, we manually adjusted, overwritten the parts where things were not correct. So as a simple example, it's the option formula assumes a normal distribution. But if you have, like we have at the moment, the market is going up, 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 it's not a normal distribution, it's skewed. So what did we do? We created something which is called the risk reversal to help the formula which is flawed at this particular point. So now, if I think as the unconscious mind as a system which is really works well, but it needs a little bit adjustment here and there, and I need to understand where it does need these adjustments. This is where I'm at the point where I understand that I need to understand how this system works, how I actually
Mm-hmm.
work. So this is where that self-assessment and the self-leadership comes in. If you're looking at leadership principles, they're all logic, including emotional patterns, by the way. To be able to use them for oneself means to know one's own ego and to know oneself truly. So when I know that, then I also understand that I distort, delete, and generalize a lot of the things which are happening around me. However, once I know where all these adjustments are coming from, I can take them out again. And then now
Right.
I can see the outside for what it really is. No generalizations, no distortions, no deletions, just things as they are.
Right.
Now, then I
Right.
have real clarity and can have that vision and make decisions. Others will follow me as they recognize authentic and congruent thought and actions. This is so important. And so a large part of the internal and external leadership model is built on the authentic leadership as well on the servant leadership style. Again,
Right.
befitting for the day and age which we live in now. It is bringing this mission and vision to clarity within the framework of an internal leadership, leading myself, that my actions become congruent,
Right.
and communicating that to the audience in an appropriate manner once state of clarity is achieved. So that is always the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot
Right.
about the unconscious mind and those filters and our drivers on my website. You can go for more details there, but I don't want to just get lost in that part, but rather give more ability to look at other areas as well, which you probably are
Right.
interested in.
Sure. Sure. So I think talking about self leadership and why leadership starts with leading yourself. When it comes to ourselves, it may sound to be very easy that that's something in my control. If you're leading others, you may find difficult, but if you have to lead yourself, it should be in your control and should be easy. But I think, as they say, the toughest person to lead is yourself, right? And I think
Yeah.
wh- so. How do I know about myself? Where do I stand on my leadership? What my competencies and traits are? I'm sure a lot of audience would have that kind of a dilemma in their mind that when we talk about leading myself first, so because there hasn't been a concept, whenever people have got into managerial positions, people have got into leadership positions, it is always about sitting in the corner office, having a team of 15, 20 people, directing them, doing this, doing that. So it's a complete, I would say, a complete step back and talking about self leadership, and that would be the starting point on how we become better leaders and how we lead others better. So how do I get to know myself more?
The biggest change is actually happening for the leaders at the moment, because as you said, back in the days, it was sitting in a corner office and giving directions about how you wanted someone to do something in a very specific way at a specific time. Now, that doesn't work anymore. So you are back at trying to find a way on how you actually inspire others. And how do you do that? This is where the skills on how to lead people is to ask, first of all, more about clarity on yourself, and also the clarity about how other people actually function and what is important to self. It takes both. It takes the internal clarity about your own structures, your own filters, your own algorithm, but also as well to understand it about other people as well. And it's when you have both, this is when you truly inspire other people as well. And they then will almost automatically follow. We always think everything which we're experiencing now is absolutely new. And very often it isn't. So at that point, I am actually that command and control to command and communicate actually still already comes from the 1860s. It was Graf von Moltke in the Prussian army who actually had and you may have heard, and that might sound familiar to you, due to technological changes, all the existing strategies didn't work anymore. Because in the old days, the general would be with the troops and that would actually, they could direct them. But now, and because technology had changed, the general actually stayed back and the troops went out. So how would he actually be able to direct the troops while obviously the enemy lines would also move? So it must have,
Right.
he found a way to actually empower his own people to actually understand what the general wanted to achieve, and trusting in the ability of commanders who were up front to then actually decide and take the best options to actually bring the final vision to reality. If you think this was 1860 and, yes, it does sound familiar to today, but, it's really the old stuff. That's actually not quite correct, because some things which are good actually last during the test of time. So this command and communicate is still being used today by not just the German army, but the UK, the US, and even the United Nations, who then call it mission command, are still
Right.
using this approach today. And
Okay.
I think this is what a leader has to do today.
Yeah. It's about setting the right examples, I believe, because um, I think it boils down to the fact that people do what they see rather than what they hear. So you have to set the right examples, and because you still have the responsibility to lead your team to set and achieve the organizational vision.
Absolutely. So you still need to have this congruency between your words and your actions as well, because it nowadays more than ever it's so important that if all you have in order to have people to follow you is that you inspire them, then it's even more important that there is congruency, because nothing you don't inspire somebody when you do one say one thing and do another thing. So this does not work
Right.
anymore. In the old days, when you had command and control and you could dictate people what to do, you know it wasn't good, but it still would function. But now, as the people up front need to make decisions, in the old days we had the situation, because the world was changing so slowly, that information eventually would reach the decision maker. So it's a known fact that information doesn't travel up. And in particular,
Right.
when we have situations where people are actually living in fear, the first thing a subordinate does is he's withholding information. It's exactly the opposite of what we need today, in particular in this day and age. So
Right.
nevertheless, back in the days, over time, eventually information reached the decision maker. And we got to a point where the decision maker, let's say the CEO, like you, I know for sure that it's not the case with you, but for some CEOs, they need to make the decision of what is the color of the carpet in the conference room, because there's so much in control of what is
Yeah.
happening, that every detail is being
Correct.
commanded in order to have control. So now we're at a point where we need to pass on the authority to the lower levels as well, on a
Correct.
managerial level, so that they actually can respond quickly as the information comes in. There is no time anymore to travel up all the way to the CEO, to the C-suite, to actually make the decision. So lower managerial levels need to be able to act, and that is authority needs to go down. So, but then the vision must be clear, the same way as it was with Graf von Moltke back on in the Prussian army. The same, we need to
Right.
do that today in the boardrooms of the corporations in the 21st century.
I think there are more of insecurity issues, I believe, because people struggle. I mean, they become good leaders, but I think the biggest challenge they face is developing the next line of leaders. So apparently, a lot of insecurity sets in that if my deputy is ready to take my chair, then what would happen to me? I think that's where delegation issues also come in, and at a higher level, at the organizational vision as well.
I think, and that's actually what I'm proposing is in leadership post COVID-19 as well, is that there are actually only two emotions. And the one is love, that's fine. And the other one is fear. And once fear is happened, then there is actually a biological structure on what is happening as well. That whole clamp down on our brain, which is what we would need the most if things are in change, and if things are actually difficult and stressful, if there is a real problem, then then we actually need to stay calm. But this is not possible, because the anthropological structure of there is fear meant that what is needed was the arms and legs in order to do the fight and
Right.
flight. But in nowadays, our trigger for fear is more on an emotional level, on it's an email which can trigger fear. So, but what do I need? I need my brain to function. So what do I need to do? I need, first of all, I need oxygen and I need to
Absolutely.
use breathing, which is the most important part actually to combat not only stress, but also to get the brain functioning again. By being able to control my breath, I can actually stop the cascade which happens in the fight and flight, and come back into a relaxed state. Once the brain is relaxed, I find all the resources, I find all the information, everything is there. So this is why it's really important that I know how I can control and lead myself, because
Right.
that actually enables me as well to deal with situations. And there are so many uncomfortable situations out there which we have, but we need solutions for it.
Correct.
Hiding will not
Yeah.
help, and it will actually create the situations which we so are looking to avoid. Again, find your self-leadership and work on yourself. Acknowledge what is happening. Use specific tools which are also mentioned actually in the internal, external leadership model, and are actually in the book and as well on my website. It's so important to take control first of yourself and then the situation, because then you are empowered, then you are able to do so.
True. Now, I'm really looking forward to have a copy of the book, and I'm sure a lot of members of our audience, especially the aspiring leaders, would be wanting to read that. So, if we look at the internal external leadership model, Sonia, what would be the biggest takeaway that I can expect once I go through that model?
The internal external leadership model understands that without internal clarity, external control is pointless. And it also has internal clarity without ability to bring it across is ineffective. So it needs both components for a leader in the post-COVID-19 and the digital VUCA world to be efficient, effective, and successful.
Makes a lot of sense. And if we talk about, we discussed on the skills and abilities of good leaders. So, what is the single most important skill or ability which you think we all should have to have this internal external leadership? Do we need to have certain pre-qualifying criteria to go for this internal external leadership?
Absolutely. And you will be surprised about my answer. The most important skill for the internal as well as the external leadership is breathing. The breathing, as we just started talking about, it brings the internal clarity, but it also brings external credibility. So breathing helps us to really bring the focus back into us. It brings the clarity so we can think, we can create the vision. And what a lot of people are not aware of is with a speaker, on the listener on an unconscious level listens to the breathing and listens to the pitch of the voice. So if someone actually is stressed, what very often happens is we're being stressed, the breathing goes higher. So if my breathing actually goes higher, I'm trying to do this, which is difficult for me. So when the breathing actually gets faster and it actually gets higher, and what actually happens then is that people who actually become nervous are really getting into the state where, you know, the breath is really fast. And for that, it also means that something else is happening. And that something else is that actually the voice actually, because the breathing is so high, it's actually is also the voice is going higher. And it's stressful. So, but what happens is as the breathing gets faster, the voice is getting higher, the listener hears that. And without actually knowing about anthropology, biology, psychology, the unconscious mind knows that this person is in stress, that there is in a fight and flight mode. And as the unconscious mind hasn't quite made it to the 21st century, it goes like, we are here, you know, in our homes, in our offices. There is no saber-toothed tiger. What is that person stressed about? So as there is no saber-toothed tiger, the person must be lying. So very often, even like as much as we really believe in what we say, but just nervousness can bring a person's breathing and with it, the voice as they're presenting out of congruency for the listener. You know, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter, but this is what happens. This is what will be triggered in the listener. And hence the breathing is really important as well for external credibility. So if there's one thing which you want to focus on is what you have been doing all your life, and that is breathing, but now bringing some more consciousness to it as well and using it for yourself when you need to become calm and clear, be it before you go into a meeting, or whether you want to speak with someone and you really want to get the message across, you want that the other person believes in you, then
you're absolutely right.
It's
Being
actually
conscious and being self-aware.
what happens if you change how you breathe, and with it the pitch of your voice then gives you credibility, is actually Margaret Thatcher. She obviously was a very dominant figure in very unusual early woman actually in her day and age in European politics, and leading the UK through a massive change. But when did she become successful? When was she actually taking these massive roles? It was after she was actually given feedback that because of her voice, she didn't have the credibility. She worked on her voice, she worked on how she was breathing, and then her career took off. And then she could actually help to lead the UK into the country which it is today.
Yeah, I think being self-aware kind of brings out your improvement areas, and you cannot improve unless you are yourself aware about the weaknesses that you have so that you can work on them.
Absolutely.
Definitely, definitely. I'm really looking forward to reading the book. Sonia, is it already out in the market, and can we go out and buy it and read it?
Yeah. As with everything else, COVID has delayed the launch, but it will be published at some point in November or at the latest in December. But we're hoping for November launch as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Just do keep us posted. So we have the privilege of going through that wonderful internal external leadership model. Sonia, we're coming towards the end of the program. What is the final piece of advice to young managers and aspiring leaders as they maneuver in the digital VUCA world?
The most important part is learn about humans, learn about yourself, and you will find it's a wonderful way. Once you understand this one, you also understand the others as well. And then you can lead yourself and you can lead others in a direct way.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, all the important things in life are so simple, yet we just make them complex. Life is so simple, but we make it complex. Yeah.
And this is actually a part of, again, a luxury of the past, where we were living in a more and more complex world, and we were answering with more and more complexity. But now, as we live in a hyper complex world, we actually need simplicity and clarity.
Yeah. I think getting down to the basics, COVID has really taught us to get back to the basics now. I mean, we met people one day, and next day we know that they're not there anymore. I mean, people just disappeared, from in front of us in a matter of hours. So I think our perspective to life has changed, and I think that should essentially must flow into our organizational ways of working, in our professional relationships, in our social relationships, in our personal relationships. I think that is so important. And internal external leadership, I believe, is not only about your organizations where you work, but I think it's all about a holistic concept of life.
In the book, I go into details as well from the Western sciences, which obviously have its very strong point, but also the Eastern sciences, which highly influenced me as well. And again, time within Isha and inspired by Sadhguru as well. So, because there is no business life, there is no private life, there is just life, and this is the truth. And once we actually understand that, that is when we can become this authentic servant and really efficient and as well effective leaders, because it does, that effectiveness is also a very important part. But we need to start by leading ourselves internally, and then worry about the external side.
True, true. 100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah, wonderful, Sonia. I absolutely loved the session today, and I really hope that our audience got some wonderful insights as well. I sincerely thank Sonia for finding out time for us and being a part of today's episode of PLR shows and sharing such important insights. I'm sure these new leadership models will help us become better leaders. As she said, the book is expected to come out in November, so go out, grab your copy, and make yourself better. Thank you, audience, for joining us from various different geographies. Thank you again, Sonia. I will see you at the broadcast studio on the other side of the show. Thank you so much. Thank you, audience.
Thank you, Nalin. Thank you for the audience.